4 corners, 4 directions, 4 seasons, 4 landscapes, 4 points of the compass. This surveyor's marker was placed here in 1892. It marks the only place in America where the borders of 4 states come together in one single spot. Here meet the states of Arizona, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah. 4 states here meet in freedom under God, it says. It's a strangely magnetic place, purely arbitrary. People come from all over the world to get their pictures taken while straddling all 4 states at the exact same time. This young man doesn't quite seem to get the picture, though. No matter. There are plenty of opportunities to get pictures here. From gold mines to golden sunsets. From places of ancient worship to the spirits and the devil's own canyonlands. From here, where the 4 corners meet, we'll head off in 4 different directions to explore mountains and rivers, canyons and cultures. To seek personal adventure, to bike or hike, climb or trek, kayak or fish, ride or ski is a way of life for many who enjoy living and vacationing here in 4 Corners country. Robert Louis Stevenson once wrote, "For my part, I travel not to go anywhere, but to go. I travel for travel's sake. The great affair is to move, to feel the needs and hitches of our life more nearly, to come down off this featherbed of civilization and find the globe granite underfoot." Here, canyons natural and man-made excavate a passage to a place one discovers and rediscovers. There are always new things to see and do here. Each season, adventure reinvents itself. Watch. Listen. Run with the herd. Seek solitude. Find nature's peace and pace and flow within it. Dance. Fly. Feel. Dream. As we start our tour of the 4 Corners, we'll begin with Colorado's aspen and its maroon bells. Then explore the San Juan mountain towns of Ouray, Silverton, and Durango. Ski resorts abound here in the mountains, particularly in Colorado's Rockies and Utah's Wasatch Front. although New Mexico and Arizona also lay claim to exceptional slopes. Speak the names of Aspen, Snowmass, Wolf Creek, Purgatory, and Telluride, and skiers everywhere crave fresh, unpacked powder. From black diamonds to green circles, the area offers thousands of runs, from downhill to cross-country, from lazy to downright life-threatening. On almost any slope, you'll find those in the eternal search for big air. But it's an afternoon out with the family that also appeals. While Telluride boasts a vertical drop of 3,000 feet and a black diamond run called the Plunge, others seek tamer slopes to let the kids have their runs. Out here among these mountains high, it's easy to get distracted by the beautiful surroundings. You can watch the scenery or watch where you're going, but try not to do both at the same time. Skiing together and alone, out here within a winter wonderland, is one of those rare, simple pleasures. Much of Colorado is famous for its high mountain peaks, many over 14,000 feet. Around the crackling fire of the lodge, hikers compare how many 14ers they've ascended in their quests. Several of those 14ers make up Colorado's beautiful Maroon Bells. Just a short canyon ride from Aspen, the deep purple mountains contrast with the green moss at the bottom of Maroon Lake for a quintessential postcard view of the Rocky Mountains. Some of the locals, however, seem more interested in their daily commute. The small mountain resort of Ouray is known as the Switzerland of America. Mountain peaks from 10 to 14,000 feet almost completely surround the small town, giving it an alpine amphitheater effect. Ouray is named for a southern Ute chief. Utes called the San Juan Range the Shining Mountains. On the edge of town, Box Canyon Falls cuts a narrow gorge through an ancient fault. Elevated wooden boardwalks and stairways line the gorge, giving a close-up view of the falls and Canyon Creek. A suspended bridge hangs high above the canyon for a dizzying view of the gorge below and the town beyond. Nearby natural hot springs offer a chance to relax at any time of the year. It is perhaps the ghosts that give these mountains their special character. Abandoned mines pepper the hills here with names like Lucky 20, Lost Day, and Silver Bell. Millions of dollars worth of copper, zinc, lead, gold, and silver were extracted much by hand from these rocks over the last 130 years or so. Legend has it that a gravedigger once struck a vein of silver while carving at a grave. The cemetery was staked for a claim, and the dearly departed left frozen in a snowbank till spring. Working conditions were primitive and harsh. Labor disputes between empire builders and mine workers often exploded like the dynamite they used to blast the tunnels here. Rough and tumble towns grew up quickly. Then silver markets suddenly collapsed, and the towns blew away in the wind. All aboard! The Durango and Silverton Narrow Gauge Railroad has been putting steam to the rails since 1882. Incredibly, it took less than a year to carve out the route from Durango to Silverton, a distance of over 40 miles. The right-of-way first follows the open Animas River Valley to its narrows, then begins climbing its way up the side of the wide canyon. After a stop in Rockwood, the train enters a narrow cut as it prepares to enter the Animas River Gorge. This section is known as the High Line, where the tracks hang on cliffs hundreds of feet above the river. Here, the canyon narrows considerably. Normal tracks are 56.5 inches from rail to rail, but these trains ride on rails set just 3 feet apart. This narrow gauge means smaller cars and narrower mountain cuts, which saved time and money on its design and construction. It also means that the view from your car seems just a little bit more precarious. Indeed, the trip has been called one of the most thrilling railroad journeys in the world. The railroad offers 2 basic types of conveyance. Closed cars offer comfortable warm seating, while the open cars bring the experience closer and afford much better views. Dark clothing is recommended if you're riding outside, though. This is, after all, a steam engine burning coal, and flying ash adds a measure of realism to your clothing. But it's all part of riding the rails and enjoying the San Juan Mountains scenery. Aspen, spruce, and fir trees line the route. And when the fall leaves change, the ride can be a real treat. And you're not chained to your seat either. After your ticket is punched, you're free to sample the view from other cars. There's a concession car as well, with snacks, drinks, and small meals. There's also a first-class parlor car. Pampered passengers there enjoy a view from the rear of the train. The train makes occasional stops to drop off and pick up hikers. The Needle Creek Trail departs from the old mining camp of Needleton and follows an abandoned stage road up into the wilderness. There, hikers can encounter deer, elk, and other wildlife on their way to remote peaks. Since the railroad is a popular transport to the nearby Weminuche Wilderness area, it's not uncommon to see fishermen, river rafters, hikers, and horseback riders along the journey. $300 million worth of precious metal ore was carried out of Silverton over these rails. Evidence of the old mines is everywhere. The riverbed shows the stains of chemicals leaching out of the old tunnels. Today, the train carries a different cargo. Nearly 200,000 passengers take a ride on the train every year. It takes about 3 hours to go from Durango to Silverton. Then passengers have about 2 hours to eat lunch and visit the shops in Silverton. The train actually bypasses the train station and runs right into the center of town. Watch your toes. Silver by the ton, it was called. Silverton was established in 1876. The same year, Colorado became the Centennial State. Soon, the Grand Hotel, now called the Grand Imperial Hotel, was built. Stores opened up, and the town prospered. Later followed the City Hall and other historic buildings. The old jail, built in 1883, is actually for rent. It's a long-term lease, they say, 5 to 7 years. The town once attracted the lawless, but today it's families that come and visit. The last working mine ceased operations here in 1991, and the town is now entirely dependent on tourism. Silverton hosts souvenir stores, galleries, and a funnel cake shop along its wooden boardwalks. It has about 500 hearty year-round residents. Rather than hop back on the southbound train, some riders opt for taking a bus trip back to Durango, which cuts 2 hours off the return trip, but is not nearly as interesting. Others plan to stay the night here in Silverton and take in the town at a more leisurely pace, riding back on the afternoon train. There's also the option of starting in Silverton and spending the evening whining, dining, and shopping down in Durango and returning in the morning. We'll return to Durango on the train, however, for one last look at this outmoded mode of transportation. All aboard? Over the course of the whole route, the elevation along the way ranges from about 6,500 feet to over 9,000. Running the train are a crew of 5, 2 brakemen, a conductor, fireman, and engineer. The steam engines vaporize 3 tons of coal and 5,000 gallons of water on each leg of the trip. The steam locomotives in use today were built in the 1920s. The railway occasionally brings in guest locomotives of different eras, and train enthusiasts line the tracks to get a glimpse of railroading history. They also offer special moonlight, fall foliage, and holiday trains. However, service does not go all the way to Silverton in the winter due to the heavy snows in the mountains here. The Animas River derives its name from the Spanish, who called it El Río de las Ánimas Perdidas en Purgatorio, roughly the river of the lost souls in purgatory. It would not be hard to lose one's soul among these mountains. The former Purgatory Ski Resort, now called Durango Mountain Resort, is just over the canyon's west wall, behind us here as we climb above the river. The climb out along this section of the High Line allows us not only a good view of the sheer canyon below, but of the steam engine ahead, as well as the parlor car bringing up the rear of the train. No matter which side of the train your seat is on, you'll eventually have an opportunity to enjoy all the best views. Leaving the San Juan Mountains behind, we'll soon be arriving back in Durango. Durango was founded in 1881, named after a city in Mexico. The Silverton Ranch was opened the following year, and the city grew from its mining prosperity. The train depot at the south end of Main Avenue hosts a gift shop and a new freight yard museum, spotlighting the history of the train and the area. Many restaurants, shops, and nightclubs crowd along Main Avenue. The city has eateries and galleries in its historical downtown buildings. Piano music can often be heard at any time of the day. The clock outside the old General Palmer Hotel, however, could use some restoration. It's hard to tell whether it's 10 after 12 or 10 minutes till 2. The San Juan Skyway has been called one of the most scenic mountain drives in North America. Part of the Skyway is known as the $1 Million Highway. It began as a toll road built in the 1880s and crosses two 10,000-foot passes on its way south from Ouray to Silverton and on to Durango. No one really knows exactly why they call it the $1 Million Highway. But the story I like is that a weary stagecoach traveler once said, "You couldn't pay me $1 million to go back over that road." Well, I'd be happy to take it, both the road and the $1 million. While I was shooting these scenes, a local sheriff deputy pulled up in front of me and accused me of stealing the views. I claimed innocence. So let's just keep this our own little secret, okay? The only crime I felt I could be accused of was envy of the daily view from his own front office window. There are, of course, many other mountain ranges in the 4Corners region. Arizona's San Francisco Peaks, for example, top out at over 12,600 feet. Mount Humphreys is the highest in Arizona, yet lies only 50 miles from the depths of the Grand Canyon. Wildflowers blanket these slopes in the spring, while the aspens turn a brilliant golden yellow in the fall. Four-wheel drive is essential gear in the mountains of 4Corners. Rent a Jeep, or bring your own vehicle as I did, to enjoy the remote and rugged back roads and mountain views. Go to the mountains. Climb among the bighorn, who look at you with a cautious gaze, pausing to nibble on the new spring shoots of grass here in the high country. It is here that vapor becomes mist, becomes a stream, becomes a river. The next chapter of our 4 Corners adventure. Snowmelt from the mountains of the 4 Corners drains east and west. The Arkansas and Rio Grande rivers run down to the Gulf of Mexico, while the San Juan River system joins the Colorado, which continues to carve out the Grand Canyon on its way to the Gulf of California. These western rivers provide some of the best whitewater recreational opportunities on the continent. Put on your dry suit and let's put in. Kayakers seek out these Colorado River rapids in Glenwood Canyon. Climb in the cockpit, strap your spray skirt to the coaming, and one draw stroke later and you're among the riffles and rapids, peeling out along the eddy lines, soaking up the waves, making it look easy. Our friend here is demonstrating the screw roll. First the setup, then the sweep, hip snap, and the recovery. Thank you. This pair is demonstrating the wrong way to run downriver, but having an enormous amount of fun doing it. River rapids are rated from Class 1, barely a ripple, up to Class 6, virtually unnavigable. Class 5 rapids are only for the extremely well-fit athlete. Kayakers love to take an ender into a hole, then spin and pirouette on the vertical bounce back out. Techniques can be learned from qualified instructors on an easy course, such as these Class 2 and Class 3 rapids. Enthusiasts eventually learn the Eskimo, brace, steer, reverse screw, vertical paddle, sea-to-sea, storm, and hand rolls, as well as the pry, sweep, and draw paddle strokes. Much further downriver, the Colorado flows past the Red Rock country of Utah and Arizona. The word Colorado means colored red. Rafting the Colorado from Lee's Ferry into the Grand Canyon is one of the most popular such trips in the world. Individual groups must wait years for a special permit. This group is enjoying one of those rare private trips into the Great Gorge. Commercial rafting trips can be booked much more easily, although reservations well in advance are usually required. Motorized boats can navigate the entire Grand Canyon in just a few days, while non-motorized travel offers a quieter, slower-paced, and some would say more relaxed alternative. The rapids and calm waters here in Marble Canyon give a taste of the river to come. The sheer vertical walls of the canyon rise gradually above them, pushing them inward toward their incomparable passage through the grandest of all canyons. Navajo Lake is the largest in northwestern New Mexico. The lake is home to trout, bass, crappie, catfish, and northern pike. Trophy rainbow, German brown, and brook trout abound in the San Juan River below the dam, known for some of the very best trout fishing in the country. The San Juan meets the Colorado in the waters of Lake Powell. Lake Powell is named for Major John Wesley Powell, who led the first expedition through these canyons in 1869. The lake was formed in the 1960s and 70s, with the completion of the Glen Canyon Dam begun in 1957. Major Powell called the area Glen Canyon, after the cool glens branching off of the river here. Moab is the most popular and accessible of the 5 marinas on the lake. Summer weekends find the boat launches filled with people heading for the water. Parking can be a problem. However, I think this sign overstates the obvious. There is a lodge, campground, and RV park overlooking the lake at Moab, along with boat rentals and lake cruises. Houseboats are very popular here. Because of the size of the lake, a houseboat brings with it all the comforts of home as you explore and enjoy the scenic wonders and aquatic recreation to be found here. Some boast luxurious staterooms, multiple bathrooms, central air conditioning, and even pool slides. Houseboats range from 36 to 58 feet in length and can tow all your toys. They rent from $200 to over $1,000 per day. You can spend as little or as much as you want on your boat. Water skiing, jet skiing, kayaking, and swimming are just some of the aquatic offerings of Lake Powell. As we make our way up the lake, the canyons narrow. Although it is just 186 miles long, the lake has almost 2,000 miles of shoreline and is said to be the second largest man-made reservoir in the world. The area lives off of just 7 inches of precipitation per year, yet can be subject to flash floods. Water and ice continue to carve the canyons here. To Major Powell, this landscape was, he said, a curious ensemble of wonderful features. Carved walls, royal arches, glens, alcove gulches, mounds, and monuments. The lake contains populations of large and smallmouth bass, striped bass, green sunfish, black crappie, channel catfish, trout, walleye, and bluegill, as well as the rare humpback and bony-tailed chub, razorback sucker, and Colorado squawfish. The record catch was a striped bass, weighing nearly 50 pounds. Continuing deeper, the canyons close in on the boat. There's barely a foot on either side. But we're determined. Legends hold that in these canyons lies a sacred place, a natural wonder, a rainbow made of stone. There is no doubt that the waters of Lake Powell have made many of the lake's canyons much more accessible than before the lake was here. Canyon features which were only discovered in the last 50 years are more easily visited by today's explorers arriving by boat. Even though a large proportion of visitors focus on water recreation, hikers use the lake to jump off on long walking treks into distant dry canyons. One could easily spend a life of spare time getting lost among the side canyons and hidden mesas. Petroglyphs, ancient stone ruins, and even dinosaur tracks can be found within these labyrinths of Navajo sandstone, covered in desert varnish tapestries. In 1776, Padres Silvestre Escalante and Francisco Dominguez went out of their way to get lost here. They were returning to Santa Fe after unsuccessfully trying to find an overland route to California. These two priests and 11 others descended jagged cliffs to cross the Colorado River here. The actual crossing site is now lost, 500 feet beneath the lake. Forbidding Canyon leads us inward toward our final destination. It has been called one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. It rises almost 300 feet above the canyon and is the largest natural bridge on Earth. It was discovered for history less than 100 years ago. Before that, only legends of a rock rainbow were heard among the Navajo and Paiute peoples. Rainbow Bridge and the dark Navajo Mountain beyond are places sacred to the first people. Indeed, this sandstone arch is not entirely unlike great cathedral arches assembled from masonry. This one, however, is carved by God. When we return, we'll explore the canyonlands and cultures of the Four Corners as we continue on our Southwest adventure. It's an unmatched combination of varied terrain and incomparable views which attracts mountain bikers from all over the world to come to Moab, Utah, to ride. One of the most famous mountain bike runs among the red rocks of Moab is the Slick Rock Bike Trail. The loop is over 10 miles long and is marked by white lines painted on the bedrock, showing the route. The far end overlooks the Colorado River Gorge and winds past places like Wade's Hole, Updraft Arch, and Swiss Cheese Ridge. Although the route is rated most difficult, there is a practice loop mapped out as a warm-up. On any given day, you'll find old and young pushing the limits of bicep and bicycle to extract from these rocks an adrenaline rush. A good helmet to protect what little brains you might have is necessary here. There's no soft earth to cushion a fall. Tire patches and Band-Aids can soothe the skids and scrapes of an otherwise unforgettable adventure. Other area trails beckon, with names like Klondike Bluffs, Gemini Bridges, Cocopelli's Trail, and Poison Spider Mesa. One jeep trail, called Hell's Revenge, devours 4x4s like afternoon snacks. Bikes can be rented for about $30 a day, and you don't have to be suicidal to saddle up. Join an adventure tour, or go it alone. There are plenty of trails from which to choose. Rock and river converge here, drawing adventurers to its sandstone shores. It is the corrosion of stone to sand which perforates the landscape here. Holes punched by wind, water, and time proliferate here as in no other place. Natural bridges, arches, and windows define southeastern Utah, particularly here at Arches National Park. Enclosed within are over 2,000 natural sandstone arches, the world's largest concentration. Landscape Arch, the longest, stretches an unbelievable 306 feet from one end to the other. Tons of rock suspend as delicately as a spider's web. Easy walking trails approach many of the largest arches, where guides explain the geology at work. It is a photographer's paradise. A hedgehog cactus blooms from out of the cryptobiotic soil. An evening primrose shelters itself in the shade next to a rock. It blooms at night, and when the morning sun hits it, it'll turn pink. A western whiptail lizard watches. A chipmunk listens. Shoot fast, or they're gone. Save a little film for the most recognizable feature of the park, Delicate Arch. A 1.5-mile climb gives hikers a chance to stand at the foot of a legendary view. The La Salle Mountains act as a backdrop to the arch, which stands 45 feet high and 33 feet wide. But statistics can't measure the greatness of the place. Instead, it is in the singular contemplation of the thing that inspiration lies. Not far from here, Edward Abbey wrote his Desert Solitaire. He said, "If Delicate Arch has any significance, it lies, I will venture, in the power of the odd and unexpected, to startle the senses and surprise the mind, to compel us into a reawakened awareness of the wonderful, that which is full of wonder." The northern portion of Canyonlands National Park and Utah's Dead Horse Point State Park combine to form a region known as Islands in the Sky. The view from here can stretch 100 miles. Far below the rim, the Green River meets the Colorado in one of the most remote and inaccessible places in the country. Only rough backcountry trails and a few primitive roads enter these jagged canyons. One section, known as the Maze, has been called a 30-square-mile puzzle in sandstone. Although place names such as the Dollhouse, Orange Cliffs, and the Chocolate Bars sound inviting, the land itself is much less than hospitable. Leading down into these canyonlands is the Schaefer Trail. First carved out as a cattle trace, then later widened for uranium exploration. Now, it invites four-wheel drivers and mountain bikers. It drops, or climbs, depending on your direction, 1,200 feet in just 4 miles. The trail leads to the White Rim Road, a four-wheel drive trek 100 miles long, requiring several days to negotiate. Canyonlands lies at the top of what is called the Grand Staircase. We'll step over to Capitol Reef, then erode our way down to Grand StaircaseEscalante, taking in Bryce Canyon, Zion, and the Vermilion Cliffs. The native Fremont people were the first to inhabit this area of narrow canyons and jagged ridges, called reefs by the pioneers who came later. Some of those pioneers settled here, hand-built their homes, and planted fruit orchards, which still shelter deer populations today. A schoolhouse still stands as it has since the early 1900s, waiting silently for students to arrive. Students who've long since left the area to tourists. Butch Cassidy and his Wild Bunch used to hide out from the law among these isolated and mysterious canyons. To the pioneers, this circular reef looked like the first flat dome built over the United States Capitol building. Capitol Dome and the reefs surrounding it combined to give this national park its unique name. It is indeed a place hard to describe otherwise. It is quiet groves and washes, arches and canyons, centered along the Fremont River, and a great geologic formation known as the Water Pocket Fold. Look, a partridge pear in a big tree. A pair of chikar partridges, actually, natives of the eastern Mediterranean, imported to this country as game birds. This land is extremely dry. Rainwater collects in small pockets of rock, forming pools called tanks. The Water Pocket Fold is a giant upheaval in the Earth's surface, stretching 100 miles, confining east-west travel to narrow gorges. These gorges were used as early highways to traverse the reefs of the fold. Today, you can still drive some of these old canyon roads, here in Grand Wash and Capitol Gorge. Utah is proud of its scenic byways and backways. One of the most striking of these byways is State Route 12. It curves through Red Canyon, carves through solid rock, and meanders its way to another of Utah's national parks, Bryce Canyon. A pioneer named Ebenezer Bryce staked his claim at the bottom of a peculiar canyon of strangely shaped rocks. Bryce's canyon was, he said, a hell of a place to lose a cow. The canyon isn't really a single canyon at all, but one step of the so-called Grand Staircase. As you stand on the rim, you can look out over this beautifully eroded step, across carpets of carved rock formations, sometimes called hoodoos. Sunrise, sunset, and inspiration viewpoints are among the most popular, and each has hiking trails leading to the canyon. The park is crisscrossed by 50 miles of hiking and horse trails. We have only time to sample Bryce's wonders. It's time to take the next step, a sidestep over to Zion National Park. Nothing can exceed the wondrous beauty of Zion, wrote pioneer geologist Clarence Dutton, the man who coined the term Grand Staircase in 1880. In the nobility and beauty of the sculptures, there is no comparison, he said. There is an eloquence to their forms which stirs the imagination with a singular power and kindles in the mind a glowing response. Mormon pioneers were so awed by the canyon's natural beauty, they named it Little Zion, and such features as Angel's Landing and the Great White Throne. There is nothing little about the canyon. Just ask this mountain climber. These stones rise 3,000 feet above the valley below, reaching for the sky with biblical proportion. Imagine climbing all the way up this rock. I guess we know he'll be hanging around for a little while. Hanging gardens thrive in a grotto called Weeping Rock. Water seeps from between layers of stratified sediment to form a curtain of nearly perpetual rain. Feeding maidenhair ferns, columbine, and monkey flower in this desert oasis. If you're looking to get even more wet, consider a hike through the pools and potholes of the Virgin River Narrows. The 16-mile journey requires a backcountry permit and a pair of shoes you don't mind getting wet. A watery hike among these temples of Zion is a baptism into paradise. From the land of Zion, we step over to Grand Staircase-Escalante, the 4Corners' newest national monument. This national monument was created in 1996 and covers 1.7 million acres of Utah landscape. The region was explored by Padres Escalante and Dominguez in 1776, on their way over to what is now Lake Powell. Utah's State Route 12, the scenic byway from Bryce, courses through this sparsely visited park. It encompasses a vast area of wilderness, including the Escalante Canyons, Kaiparowitz Plateau, and the Vermilion Cliffs. Utah's Kodachrome Basin State Park is sandwiched in between, in the middle of an area appropriately called Color Country. Only rugged dirt roads lead beyond the basin to a remote preserve named by an expedition for the founder of the National Geographic Society, Grosvenor Arch. The span is actually made up of two separate arches. Grosvenor Arch is a rare double arch. At the other end of Cottonwood Canyon lies the old ghost town of Perea. Although there's not much left of the old mining town, Hollywood long ago added a few more buildings to create a movie set. Perea is a Paiute word for muddy water, a good name for Perea's main street. The Vermilion Cliffs paint a backdrop to the set. John Wesley Powell called them a long bank of purple cliffs plowed from the horizon high into the heavens. The Vermilion Cliffs are commonly considered the bottom step of the Grand Staircase. But there is one more giant step down: the Grand Canyon. "Do nothing to mar its grandeur," Theodore Roosevelt once said. "Keep it for your children and all who come after you as the one great sight which every American should see." Geologist Clarence Dutton was so awed by the Grand Canyon, he worried that objectivity might be skewed by his descriptions of grandeur. "The fundamental requirement of scientific method," he said, "accuracy of statement is imperiled." The Grand Canyon is a mile deep, 18 miles wide, and 277 miles long. Its geology spans 2 billion years, yet just 130 years ago was entirely uncharted. The Grand Canyon is one of America's most popular parks, of course, and it can be difficult to get away from it all here. But a search for the elusive, undiscovered East Rim can prove rewarding. With views of trails and monuments, distant Marble Canyon and the Vermilion Cliffs, and even glimpses of the Colorado far below. From the widest to the narrowest. The Black Canyon of the Gunnison River in Colorado is one of the narrowest, deepest gorges in the country. You can easily hear people on the other side of the canyon talking, yet look down into depths up to 3,000 feet below. The national park is the result of just 2 million years of erosion and encompasses 53 miles of the wild, undammed Gunnison River. Roads lead to the north and south rim viewpoints and down into the gorge itself, where fishing, boat tours, and river rafting are things to do. From black canyons to red, like the sands of an hourglass, we descend into a world of fantastic shapes and sublime designs. Carved by wind and water, layers of red sandstone lead us deep into a world far below, as much as 50 feet below the rim of a slot canyon. The ever-changing dance of light and hue, and shape and contrast attract professional photographers from all over the world to Antelope Canyon near Lake Powell. No two photographs of these canyons will ever be the same. No two moments exactly alike. Bring along a pair of sturdy shoes you don't mind ruining. The iron red mud will leave souvenir stains of your journey. But be aware of distant thunderstorms. Flash floods can fill these canyons in a matter of minutes, and raging torrents have killed hikers without warning in recent years. You will emerge from the underworld with an appreciation of the beauty of the land hidden within this desert country. Our flash flood tour of 4Corners Canyons will close with a glance at Canyon de Chelly and Monument Valley. Canyon de Chelly National Monument overlooks not only a canyon, but a way of life. The canyon is inhabited by Navajo people who farm and herd sheep on the canyon floor. This is their sehi, their physical and spiritual home. There are no paved roads within the canyon. You can buy a ride on one of the Jeep tours which drives up through the riverbed. Or hire a native guide and take your own car up the wash, if you dare. There is but one hiking trail leading down into the canyon, a 2.5-mile hike to White House Ruin. You can also rent a horse and see the canyon as its own people do, at nature's pace. Spider Rock is perhaps the best-known landmark of Canyon de Chelly, but the most famous landmarks of Navajo country are within Monument Valley. Its rock spires and desert landscapes have been the subject of many Western movies, TV shows, and commercials. Movies like Stagecoach, My Darling Clementine, and She Wore a Yellow Ribbon made the valley world famous. These are the canyons of 4 Corners. The culture of the Southwest begins with its textures, its colors, and its flavors. Dried red chili peppers hang everywhere, adding spice to clay-colored adobe walls and colorful courtyards. To eat here is to celebrate its texture, savor its colors, and taste its flavors. New Mexican cuisine is unique. Tamale, chile relleno, and cheese enchilada with fresh homemade tortilla. Blue and yellow corn tacos with pico de gallo, Spanish rice, and refried beans. With warm sopapilla fry bread and honey. Delicious. Its succulent sweet spiciness is sought by cuisine-starved pilgrims to Taos and Santa Fe. But food isn't the only sensory pleasure here. A springtime stroll through the narrow streets and alleys is a feast of fragrancy. Beauty blooms in Santa Fe's beautiful light. It is this exquisite light which attracts artists like bees to a flower. A stroll among the shops of Santa Fe will bring you face to face with its artful sculptures. A bear ponders a boy. Another soaks up the sun. Looks comfortable, doesn't he? Taos and Santa Fe are art colonies alive with craftsmanship. Galleries along Santa Fe's Canyon Road are cast and recast with the handworks of struggling artists. Santa Fe's busy town square is filled with shops and street vendors, trading Indian jewelry, art, collectibles and pottery, and even a rabbit reading a book. The square marks the end of the Santa Fe Trail, which brought supplies and settlers across the Great Plains during the middle of the 19th century. Today, the arcades surrounding the square feature a particular treasure. Popular among collectors are the exquisite black-on-black pots created at nearby Pueblo settlements. Potter Maria Martinez is perhaps the best known of these artists, and today many of her relatives turn out beautiful pieces, here featured at the Rancho de Chimayo collection. A more recent trend has been toward rich chocolate brown-on-brown pieces. Historic black and white, and the greenware pots of the Acoma and other related pueblos are also popular. pottery holds special meaning for the peoples of the Southwest. Each symbol is a representation of the spiritual and natural world around the maker. The particular styles, shapes, and colors used were indicative of the times and tribes who made them. The Spaniards also left their own markings. On a remote rocky headland in New Mexico, near a desert pool of fresh water, they left their names carved in stone. 1709, 1636, 1620. The 1605 signature of Conquistador Juan de Oñate, who established a settlement north of today's Santa Fe called San Gabriel, the capital of northern New Spain. The Catholicism they brought was adopted by many of the native pueblos in the days of Spanish influence. And while many of these villages today have patron saints, their spiritual lives are a blend of native and Spanish Catholic rituals unique to the area. These signatures are all preserved at El Morro National Monument, along with older carvings of peoples here before. Amazingly similar are marks 300 miles away, where the Fremont people etched these figures on the sandstone at Capitol Reef in Utah. Over near Canyonlands National Park is a place called Newspaper Rock, containing hundreds of mysterious figures and symbols carved out of the desert varnish. We can only guess at their meaning. The people, some Native Americans believe, emerged from the underworld through a sacred passage called a sipapu. The sacred ancient architecture of the Southwest represents this spiritual emergence. Aztec Ruins National Monument contains the Southwest's only fully restored Great Kiva, a fine example of such sacred ancient architecture. To be here is to sense what it might have been like to be within the original Kiva. The experience is not unlike visiting an ancient church and postulates the same reverence. The Pueblo descendants ask respect for the spirits of their ancestors who dwell within. They believe that all things have a time in which to live, and must be allowed to return to the earth when their time is past. Today, in a growing respect for native traditions, some ruins, which had been excavated for scientific research, are being backfilled to preserve this natural, sacred process. A balance is being sought that allows for continued learning and first-hand experience of these important sites in our human history. These ruins in Aztec, New Mexico are between two other very important ruin sites we'll visit, Mesa Verde and Chaco Canyon. Here at Chaco Culture National Historic Park, a hiking trail follows one of the ancient routes to the top of the canyon, to overlook one of the largest ancestral Puebloan ruins anywhere, Pueblo Bonito. Chaco Canyon was the hub of a thriving civilization from the middle of the 9th century, which lasted over 300 years. Over 600 round kivas and other rooms of various sizes were built 4 stories high to accommodate hundreds, if not thousands, of people. They employed a number of unique masonry styles to construct Pueblo Bonito and the 10 other significant ruins which lie within the Chaco Canyon area. This great kiva, called Casa Rinconada, is similar in size and design to that at Aztec ruins. It has, however, been partially backfilled in the past several years. Chaco Canyon became a great center of trade and travel. A network of roads spread outward from here like spokes. These roads and pathways can still be seen today, carved into the side of the canyon. Eventually, the people who lived here migrated elsewhere, the ancestors of today's Navajo, Hopi, and Pueblo nations. Mesa Verde means green table in Spanish. But what draws visitors to this park in Colorado is what's under the table. Mesa Verde National Park is home to the premier cliff dwellings of the Southwest. Hundreds of ruins line the ledges above the Montezuma and Mancos valleys, including this one, known as Cliff Palace. Tour passes are required for the Cliff Palace and Balcony House tours. Groups of about 40 are escorted down the narrow steps to the ruin under the rim. 650,000 people come each year to visit the park. Rangers speak of the palace's 150 rooms and 23 kivas. Author Willa Cather once wrote, "I saw a little city of stone asleep," she said, "with the calmness of eternity, preserved with the dry air and almost perpetual sunlight, guarded by the cliffs and the river and the desert." This 1,000-year-old cluster of ruins has been recognized as a World Heritage Cultural Site by the United Nations, to be preserved for all. What were they trying to hide from under these cliffs? No one knows why they chose such a precipitous lifestyle. Today's visitors can get a sense of the danger. They have to climb a series of ladders through a crack in the rock face to get back up to the rim. Another set of ladders and another guided tour leads to the Balcony House ruin. Following toe holds in the rock, this tour takes us literally in the footprints of the ancestors. For a close-in look through this window into the past. Mortared and plastered walls, practical wood construction, a matate and mano for grinding corn, a roof still blackened by the smoke of cooking fires, a ceremonial kiva. These cliff dwellings were lived in for less than 100 years, before they were abandoned about 700 years ago. Drought and crop failure are suspected to be the causes. The people migrated elsewhere, leaving these sentinels of their time here. To escape from the past, visitors have to crawl through a 12-foot tunnel. It's the only way out. After that, a climb up some very narrow stone steps and a couple more ladders, and we've emerged from a spiritual experience. One spiritual experience ends and another begins. Such is the cycle of life, the center of the circle, when nations gather.
And this is North America's biggest powwow. Woo! What do you think of this, ladies and gentlemen? Let's keep these nations around the world.
The Gathering of Nations takes place each year in Albuquerque, New Mexico. Participants come from all over Indian country to celebrate their unity and diversity, music and dance, culture and spirituality. During Grand Entry, everyone stands as an anthem to the eagle staff, which is brought around the arena. Eagle feathers carry a special sacred meaning, coming from the bird which flies closest to the Creator. If an eagle feather should fall, all dancing stops until the feather is restored in honor and respect. There are head men and lady dancers here, honored tribal members who lead the celebration. Each dancer's colorful outfit is the result of considerable work and expense, and is considered a very personal vestment. It is an heirloom, sometimes created by an honored family member. Ornamental pieces on a dancer's outfit often signify personal traditions, symbols, events, or honors in that person's life. Every dancer older than 5 can compete, sometimes for large cash prizes. Even the younger ones get a little something just for participating. The women's traditional dance is characterized by slow, swaying, rhythmic moves, while the men's traditional features long feathered bustles, not unlike the fanned feathers of a wild turkey, which are worn at the back of the waist and are often made from eagle or hawk feathers. The swirling fancy shawl dance reveals fine embroidered beadwork under long fringed shawls. A very colorful and whimsical dance. In this dance, the women wear jingle dresses. The jingles were originally made from rolled metal can lids and commemorate a legend in which a man recovered from his deathbed as he envisioned his daughter dancing the first jingle dance. The boys' fancy dance has bright-colored bustles, high and low on the back, and sometimes on the arms, and is extremely athletic. The grass dance is a legend recounting a lame man's dream to dance as the grasses of the prairie in the wind. Outfits for this dance are an allusion to these tall prairie grasses. Dancer Mary Jo Moore calls dance a form of praise, worship, and a way to experience interconnectedness through motion. To an observer, only repetition reveals the patterns and rhythms of each individual dance. Dancers anticipate the ending beat of a song and can win or lose points based on their unity with the singers. Dances are judged by a panel who give points based on the quality of the outfits as well as the dancing. Drums are also judged on the clarity, quality, and appropriateness of the song for the dance. Drummers chant in unison, becoming one single voice, one single beat, rising and falling in singular volume. The Gathering of Nations is an honored invitation to experience the spiritual unity of a people, an opportunity to observe and respect their prayerful dances. In their prayers, the people look to 4 sacred mountains here, to the east, south, west, and north, from which have emerged mountains and rivers, canyons and cultures. Our spiritual journey has spanned the cycle of the seasons, a walk in beauty, encircling this landscape of the sun, at last, a circle of 4 corners.